That's good. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the History on the Rocks podcast. This is your host, Cody, and of course, joining me, my lovely wife, Audrey.
Hello.
Well, the Horse Soldiers
Has come to an end.
Has come to an end, but it was very successful, and I hope everyone liked the interview with Doug. I thought it was really cool. Just the information that he gave us about the process of writing the book and what he found out writing the book, and just overall the conversation I thought it was a lot of fun.
Nice. I'm going to be honest. I have to listen to it, so.
Yeah, I know you do.
I have not had time.
I know.
I'll get there.
Well, we are going to hit part 3 today of our common phrases, or idioms. Idioms for those English folks out there. But before we do, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc.
So fancy. $15 bottle at Schnucks.
That's cheap.
Boop, boop. Yeah, it is cheap.
Actually, this
Kim
one
Crawford.
I got at Hy-Vee.
Oh, that's right.
But
I forgot
also
you got another one.
On sale for, I think, $14.99. So good price.
Well, that's good. I'm drinking Coors Banquet, the banquet beer, 1873, with Rocky Mountain water. I don't know. Yeah, I've kind of gotten away from the Busch Light thing, and I started drinking Coors Banquet, and I don't know. I'd rather drink it reminds me of drinking beer in, well, Colorado. Yeah, I mean, that's where it's from. But it reminds me of
sense.
It reminds me of like skiing, like the winter, and being in like a mountain town and drinking Coors. Busch Light reminds me of living where we live. So out in the farmland area. All right. So let's get to it.
Sounds good.
We have 10 new phrases for part 3 here. And the first one is by and large.
By and large.
Yeah. So if someone ended their, like, they were describing a situation to you and they were like, by and large, it was a good time.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
Yeah,
that's why
I feel like I
it.
really haven't heard this one.
This one kind of is
people don't like really
less
say
said,
it.
but like it's one of those that's kind of like, oh yeah. When you use by and large.
Is it BY?
Yes, like
and large?
yes,
Okay.
by and large.
Figured I'd just ask for clarification.
Yeah. It's basically someone stating that what they just said is mostly true, but not completely true. So if I was like, I went to go to the grocery store and by and large, I got everything I needed.
Oh.
It means like I pretty much got everything I needed, but there's something I'm not telling you that I didn't get or something like that. Or like, let's say I went to like a bachelor party, right?
Yeah.
Went to like Vegas for a bachelor party, whatever. And I was like, oh, by and large, it was a good time.
But it was probably like a really good time.
No, well, it was like a really good time. Maybe I'm leaving information out, or maybe I threw up for 3 days straight.
Or that. I mean, yeah.
Or maybe I wanted to throw up on the plane coming home.
Could go either way.
I know someone who's done that before.
Guilty.
Yeah, running to the bathroom when you're supposed to be seated.
You know what? If you gotta go, you gotta go.
So by and large is a nautical term from the late 17th century, which stems from the practice of sailing. So sailing by is this rather more difficult concept, but to simplify it, it means in the general direction of. So sailors would say that to be by the wind is to face into the wind or within 6 compass points of it. Okay, so if you're setting your course, you're sailing in the general direction of
where you need to
go. It could be 6 compass points off. So you might be just a little off course either way, left or right, but in general, you're headed the right way.
Okay.
Sailing large is when the wind is blowing from some compass point behind a ship's direction of travel, then it is said to be large. Sailors have used this term for centuries, and for example, this piece from Richard Hakluyt's The Principal Navigations, Voyages, and Discoveries of the English Nation, 1591, he quotes, "When the wind came larger, we weighed anchor and set sail." So basically, large is like the wind's blowing in the right direction.
And
And your sails,
full forward.
your sails at full canvas. Yeah. So when the wind is in that favorable large direction, the largest square sails may be set, and the ship is able to travel in whatever downwind direction the captain sees fit. And these sailing techniques were sufficient to keep the ship heading in approximately the right direction, but they were not very accurate. So just like if I use by and large in a sentence talking about a situation, it's mostly true. It's heading in the right direction, but there might have been things that were flawed along the way.
Okay.
So that's by and large. I don't know if anyone really uses by and large, but I'm going to start using it now.
I feel like it's not one that I've really heard.
I'm just going to start using these more and more.
Yeah.
All right, our second idiom, hands down.
Hands down. Oh gosh, like how do we?
That was hands down the best concert I've ever been to.
Like, how do you describe that? It like the best. It like there's nothing competing with that.
Easily or unquestionably is hands down.
Hands down.
So this is kind of a fun one. It's a short history, but the origin of this phrase is found in horse racing history and dates back to the middle of the 19th century when a horse was so far ahead of the rest that it was a sure win. The jockey would loosen his grip on the reins and drop his hands as he and his horse approached the finish line. So the win was so easy, he put his hands down and just let the horse ride the rest of the way and didn't have to do any more work.
Didn't have to like push it.
Right. So like the Stanley Cup playoffs are on right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are currently watching the Avs and the Jets. And I could say, hands down, this is the best series of the playoffs so far. Meaning that these two teams playing against each other has been the best series out of the 8 that are happening, right?
Yeah.
So that's hands down. Very, very simple one, but horse racing. Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense.
It does.
All right. We've got a couple weddings at the end of the year, and hopefully this doesn't happen. But our third idiom is cold feet.
You don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like I'm out.
So you've lost the courage to do something. A moment might be too stressful and causes cold feet. This occurs at, getting married, like I just said, making a speech, asking someone on a date, things that you have to build up courage for.
Yeah.
And you can get cold feet.
Get cold feet.
So there's a couple of European definitions to this. Italian roots of cold feet. Some note that the Italian phrase aver freddo ai piedi.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I said that pretty well.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Aver freddo ai piedi. To be cold in the feet is what that directly translates to in English. Could be the origin of the modern idiom, and it appeared in an Italian play in 1605. Now, there's a German poker definition of having cold feet. Some people trace the origin of cold feet to the German idiom kalte Füße bekommen.
I bet you said that right.
I did say that right. Kalte is cold, Füße is feet, and bekommen is to become. So my cold feet have come, which means exactly the same thing, to get cold feet, with the same figurative meaning, to lose courage. The phrase first appeared in an 1878 English translation of the German novel Seed Time and Harvest, when a character leaves the poker table when his luck and his feet allegedly are cold. So he didn't have the courage to play poker anymore because he was losing.
His feet were too cold?
Yes. Now, blaming one's cold feet was not an uncommon way to avoid losing the rest of your money at a poker table in the 19th century. While this usage refers to the character's actual feet and their supposed coldness, it also links the phrase to lack of courage, which would later become its figurative meaning as we know it now. But there's also cold footers and the Great War, so World War I. By 1916, the related term cold footers and cold feeters in Australian was a derogatory name for those who refused to fight in World War I, similar to draft dodgers in America during, Vietnam.
Oh.
Some believe that the phrase connects to a soldier developing frostbite, thus having to leave the battlefield. However, the appearance of cold feet in literature before World War I does suggest that the phrase already had a colloquial meaning of losing courage. However, it was used as a derogatory term for those who didn't want to go to war in World War I.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so.
But, that makes sense because they don't have the courage to do it.
Right. So you can use cold feet for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But that was an interesting one.
That is.
All right, our fourth idiom, caught red-handed.
busted. We haven't done this one yet?
No, we did paint the town red. We didn't do caught red-handed. We might have talked about it in one of another episode just briefly because we were talking about something else.
Maybe. But yeah, you're busted.
Yeah, you pretty much got caught in the act of doing something, or you're not covering up your crime very well.
Mm-hmm.
The first use of the phrase red-handed originated in 15th century Scotland, at the time referred to someone literally having blood on their hands after committing a crime.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
I was
right?
thinking that, totally.
Very literal. In 1432, a record of, quote, the Scottish Acts of Parliament of James I includes a reference to someone having a red hand as a consequence for their wrongdoing. In this case, most likely poaching an animal from forbidden hunting grounds. So they had the animal's blood on their hands from illegally killing them.
Yeah.
But that's all I found on caught red-handed. It starts in Scotland way back in the 15th century. So,
Man, that was a good one.
yeah, I mean,
It's pretty literal.
that's one people also use, I think, a lot more like, caught you red-handed, bastard.
What?
I don't know. Like, I caught you in the middle of the crime, you bastard.
So that's what they said back then?
No, that's what I just said now. Don't judge me.
Judging.
Is this idiom number 5?
Yeah, that was 4.
Oh, 5 comes after 4. Perfect. Blood is thicker than water.
Oh. I don't know how to describe that. Or like its meaning. Like why somebody would say it.
Someone would say it because, like, your family is everything. Your blood is thicker than water. So, basically, anything outside your family is the water, and you should do anything for family. So your blood is thicker than water.
Okay.
The phrase can be traced back to the 12th century in Germany. The equivalent of the phrase is also found in the Heidelberg manuscript. When translated to English, the phrase says, I also hear it said that kin blood is not spoiled by water. So basically, like, the blood of your kin, so your family, right, your relatives, can't be spoiled by water because blood is always thicker than the water. Although it slightly differs from the current phrase, the Germanic phrase implies the significance of family relationships, which, yeah, I come from a German family and everyone is really tight.
That's very true.
Yeah. The phrase's current form, blood is thicker than water, then later appears as a proverb in Scottish literary works. It is often attributed to Scottish novelist Sir Walter Scott. Sir Walter Scott! That just reminded me of Michael Scott in The Office when he's in that meeting. David Wallace just had become the new CFO, and at the end of his like short film, it goes, "Great Scott!" That's what that reminded me of. But the first kind of written term of this appeared in the novelist Sir Walter Scott from Scotland in his 1815 novel Guy Mannering.
Guy Mannering?
Mannering, yes, that's the novel's name.
Is that like a name of somebody or?
It's the name of the novel. It might be. I don't know. I didn't look up Guy Mannering. I just looked up where this came from.
Oh.
But blood is thicker than water. Family is everything, pretty much.
Family first.
All right. Number 6. There's going to be a couple of these coming up again with weddings. Honeymoon.
This is a common phrase?
Well, you say honeymoon. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's technically, I guess it's not an idiom, but it's interesting.
Okay.
Where it comes from.
Well.
So, like, we're going on our honeymoon.
The vacay.
We call it a honeymoon, right?
Yeah.
It technically
or like a baby moon.
It technically is an idiom.
Yeah.
Because you could be like, we're going on our vacation because of our wedding. You know what I mean? Like
going on a vacation after our wedding.
You're still calling it something
when we got married.
Yeah. It's still being referred to as something that's like, why do they call it a honeymoon? That's pretty much where we're at here.
Yeah. I'm actually really interested.
This actually comes from medieval times. At that time, it was common for newlywed couples to drink mead, a fermented beverage that's made from honey, for a moon cycle of 30 days after their wedding. The tradition was believed to bring good luck and fertility to the couple.
Oh.
So literally, honey from the mead, moon cycle, 30 days after the wedding, you get good luck and fertility.
Okay.
Now, the idea of a honeymoon dates back as far as the 5th century in a number of European cultures when time was measured in moon cycles rather than the current calendar. At their wedding, couples were presented with a moon, or roughly 1 month's worth of mead, which was an alcoholic honey wine, which we were just talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and they would drink it together. Mead was believed to be an aphrodisiac, so couples were expected to binge on wine for 30 days to get drunk enough to establish sexual intimacy.
And make a baby.
Yes, there's the fertility that comes in. It was then hoped that the couple would conceive their first child during this time. So many historians believe the term honeymoon was born from this concept. It's a moon's worth of honey wine.
Interesting.
So the word has a literal meaning.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, honeymoons are an intimate time, and I'm sure a lot of babies have been made on honeymoons.
Yeah, but back then, I think they were probably not doing those things before getting married.
Yeah, because it was more traditional, and a lot of
So it was like your first times.
yeah, the church was more involved in people's lives back then, and it was more, it was a sin to lay with someone before your marriage.
Yes.
All right, our 7th idiom, a white elephant.
Oh, it's like you're either re-gifting a gift you got, or it's like a really random, silly, goofy gift that you bring to a party.
Right, so that's how we use it now. It's considered to be something that's useless or has no value.
Yeah.
And like around Christmas time, sorry for those listeners that don't celebrate Christmas, but from what we celebrate is Christmas, and a white elephant gift, you go to a Christmas party and you bring something that's sitting around the house that is useless.
Yeah, you'll like never use it, or you haven't ever used it and you've just kept it.
Right. And a white elephant can also be a burdensome or costly possession, whatever that might be. So this is actually a rare type of elephant that was so sacred that it was difficult, if not impossible, to dispose of it easily. Obviously, a giant white elephant is a big gift.
Yeah.
The receiver of this royal gift was thus lumbered with a beast of huge symbolic but little practical value, and the vast creature would literally eat its way through its new owner's fortune.
Oh.
In Siam, which is modern-day Thailand, the animal was, and still is, a symbol of one's power. The first use of this phrase, white elephant, in written English, are recorded in the 17th century as literal descriptions of the animal. Henry Cogan's 1663 translation of The Voyages and Adventures of Fernand Mendez Pinto describes the white elephant whereon he, the king of Siam, was mounted. So a king rode on the white elephant.
Sounds about right.
By the mid-19th century, the phrase had made the leap from the literal to the figurative and was being used to describe costly drains on resources. In a letter dated 1851, the writer John Galsworthy wrote, quote, "His services are like so many white elephants, of which nobody can make use, and yet that drains one's gratitude, if indeed one does not feel bankrupt," end quote. And by the early 20th century, the phrase had broken free of any literal meaning and was widely used to describe possessions whose cost and upkeep were out of all proportion to its usefulness or worth. The power of the white elephant derives from the stories of the birth of Buddha. So that's where this gets its kind of royal touch, is that the white elephant is rooted in the birth of Buddha stories. And in Thailand, if the king were to give you a white elephant, it's like a very prestigious gift.
Yeah.
However, the white elephant is useless, other than giving you a symbol of power
Yeah.
and importance.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's pretty literal.
Yeah.
You know, the white elephant is just useless and worthless, and as a gift, you give it because it's just laying around your house and you're probably not going to touch it again.
And give it to somebody else so they can have it in their house and you'd never use it.
Yeah, and then they give it
Never
as a white
touch
elephant
it.
gift the next year. All right, we're on idiom number 8. Close but no cigar.
You almost had it.
Exactly.
You were close, but you didn't quite get there.
You come close to achieving something but didn't quite get to that goal.
I'm interested in the history on this one, or the
You know
background.
what? I've always been interested in this too, because I'm like, why the hell do we say close but no cigar?
Because like I've definitely used this before.
Right. There's another idiom that kind of goes along with this, and it's close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
Oh yeah. I've heard that.
And that's pretty literal too, because horseshoes you get points for being close to the stick. And hand grenades, obviously, you can be close and still kill someone, and you don't have to hit them directly. So, like, I understand that. But close but no cigar, I was like, what the hell does a cigar have to do with being close?
I feel like I might have heard a story about this before, but I don't remember. So we'll see if it comes back to me.
So, close but no cigar originated in the 1920s when fairs or carnivals would hand out cigars as prizes. At that time, the games were targeted towards adults, not kids, as they are today. So yes, even in the 1920s, most carnival games were impossible to win, which often led the owner of the game to say, close but no cigar, when the player failed to get enough rings around bottles or was just shy of hitting their target.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what was the story that you heard?
I really don't remember, but I feel like that it was probably
Something like that?
Something like that. Yeah.
The first known appearance of the phrase in print, not connected to a fair in any way, was in 1929 when it appeared in the Long Island Daily Press as a paragraph heading that went on to describe a man failing to win the presidency of a community association. Throughout the 30s, the phrase became more popular and was commonly used in print and even in movies. You might remember the famous line, if you're a Western movie fan, from the film Annie Oakley. She says, "Close, Colonel, but no cigar." So it was used, and it's been used in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So close, but no cigar.
Yep.
Comes from the old days of the 1920s when adults were more carnival goers, and you don't get a big, fluffy, stuffed animal.
Big
you got a
bear
cigar.
or something.
You want a cigar.
Nice. You know what that one kind of made me think of, and maybe it's one that you'll do. Like, it's not over till the fat lady sings.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Maybe there's some story about that.
All right. Number 9, the best man.
Best man. Next to the groom, and then the best man is number 1.
So the best man is a close friend or family member of the groom who organizes a bachelor party, helps the groom prepare for their wedding, and stands beside him at the ceremony. So this is kind of like honeymoon.
Yeah.
Like we have a traditional kind of phrase here.
Yeah.
Right? But this started centuries ago in Scotland. This has a very interesting background. In the 16th century, Scottish men would usually marry women from their small village. But when there weren't enough women to go around in that village, a groom would have to invade a neighboring village and steal himself a bride. This kind of marauding was predictably risky, and so the groom would bring along the best man he knew, as in the best man and most loyal fighter, to help him kidnap a woman, bring her back to his village, and eventually marry her.
Oh, goodness.
The best man would also defend the groom before and during the marriage ceremony against the bride's family, who would come with swords swinging to try and get her back. During the ceremony, the best man would stand to the right of the groom, hand on his sword, to battle anyone who might charge up the aisle toward the groom. Talk about wedding drama.
That is wedding drama.
So yeah, the best man has a literal meaning here, as to they were to defend the groom against the kidnapping of a woman
bride
from another village.
Jeez. It'd be so crazy to like live in those days where like that's what you do.
That'd be fucking wild.
Just like, oh, they're all taken here, so we're just gonna go over here and grab another one.
Yeah.
From this town.
Yeah. To me, just the definition, like that historical situation just kind of shows how women are possession.
Yeah,
back
for
then.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Housewives.
Yeah.
And mothers.
Right.
That's pretty much all they were good for.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, back in those days, you know, women were not seen as first-class citizens, more second-class citizens, unfortunately.
I'm glad that's changed.
Idiom number 10. Let the cat out of the bag.
You said something maybe you shouldn't have said, and you spoiled it.
Yeah, you revealed a secret, and typically it's accidental, though.
Yeah.
The first documented use of the phrase comes from a book review in a 1760 issue of the London Magazine, where the reviewer said, quote, "We could have wished that the author had not let the cat out of the bag," end quote. The first origin story claims the phrase refers to the cat of nine tails. Do you remember that?
Yes.
From back when we talked about the Royal Navy?
Yes.
This was that instrument of punishment aboard its ships that those 9 leather whips were tied to one rope, and the whip's 9 knotted cords could scratch an undisciplinary sailor's back badly, hence its feline nickname. The bag comes into play because the cat, being made of leather, the whipping device, had to be kept in a sack to protect it from drying out in the salty sea air and keep it flexible. The other explanation of the phrase is that it was born from a ridiculous bit of livestock fraud. Supposedly, when merchants would sell their customers live piglets, after putting a pig in a sack for easier transport, they would sometimes swap the pig for a cat when the customer looked away. The buyer wouldn't discover that they'd been cheated out of getting a piglet. Rather, they got a cat until they got home, and they literally let the cat out of the bag.
No, yeah, like we didn't want this.
Yeah. So that is another historical possibility of where let the cat out of the bag comes from. Now, originally I said we had 10 idioms and common phrases, but we have an 11th because my friend and coworker, Jessica Lauersdorf, gave me a very interesting one that I have never heard before.
Okay.
And it is, his name is Mud, or your name is Mud.
I've never heard that either.
So if you said to someone, like, your name is Mud.
I don't know.
It's when someone has been utterly disgraced or defeated.
Hmm.
So, like, you call someone Mud, it's a kind of a derogatory term or like an insult that they're disgraceful. Now, this is an interesting one. In British slang still today, it's an insult. Okay? But Dr. Samuel Mudd was accused of helping John Wilkes Booth prior to Lincoln's assassination of treating his broken leg as he fled Washington after killing the president at Ford's Theater. He was imprisoned and then pardoned many years later. But when I researched this, the phrase actually has nothing to do with Dr. Mudd. It's just like historians have kind of just been like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like Dr. Mudd was a disgrace for helping John Wilkes Booth.
Yes.
But again, doctors have
They have to help
someone. Like even if you watch Grey's Anatomy, if you watch, what's another one? Chicago Med.
Yeah.
They have to treat a bad person, a murderer.
They take an oath.
Legally, they have to try and save that life.
Yeah, regardless of who they are, what they've done.
And Dr. Samuel Mudd would have had to do the same thing with John Wilkes Booth. Like, he's got his obligation as a doctor, his oath is to help him. However, people would have seen Dr. Mudd as disgraceful back in the 1800s for helping someone who had just killed, in my opinion, one of the best presidents ever in the United States. The Oxford English Dictionary, in an entry revised in December 2007, dates the first written example of the phrase in 1823, more than 4 decades before Lincoln was even assassinated. The term appeared in a British book, not an American one. It meant what appears to mean that your name is or will be dirty as mud if you do such and such.
Yeah.
So, like, the literal meaning of mud, right, is like soppy and dirty.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you acted like. You did something that was disgusting or sloppy or dirty like mud is.
Yeah.
So I thought this one was really interesting.
Yeah. Never heard of it.
Yeah, me either. But again, it is an insult in British slang, not so much American slang. So if you head over to, England and you hear someone say, oh, his name is Mud, they're probably talking about someone who's like not a very good person.
Yeah. They did something wrong.
They did something wrong once upon a time. But yeah, that was a very interesting. That's why I added an 11th idiom, and I forgot until we got started. But because I had my 10, and then Jessica came into the office one day while I was sitting there, and she was like, I have another idiom for your podcast. And I was like, that's a great one because it mentions Lincoln, and I love talking about Lincoln.
And you were unfamiliar with it.
And I was unfamiliar with it. I had never heard it before, so it was like a really good idea to throw it into part 3 here as a bonus idiom.
A bonus.
So, some new history of phrases in our part 3 episode.
Always interesting where these things come from.
Next week, we have a fun episode. We're going to talk about the dancing plague.
Huh?
The dancing plague
What's that?
in France. Well, you'll
Guess-
find
I
out
guess I'll
next
find
week.
out.
You'll find out next week. Yes, the dancing plague in France, Strasbourg, France, to be specific. A very interesting psychological story,
Ooh.
which is pretty interesting. So you're going to have to wait till next week for that one, but it's got some
Alrighty.
humor to it.
Okay.
My next few episodes are actually pretty humorous. There's some fun episodes coming. There are some fun episodes. So, anything else for our listeners?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, we always tell you the same thing, and we always mean it. We hope you enjoy your weekend.
Yes.
Go grab some drinks, relax, see some friends, family, and enjoy yourself. Come back next Thursday for our episode on the dancing plague, and we will talk to you later.
Alrighty. Bye.
Cheers.